Imagine a thief so confident in his master plan that he literally calls the bank and orders his money to go. Another strolls into a heist in a blonde wig and clown pants, thinking he'll blend right in. These aren't scenes from a slapstick comedy. They're real crimes pulled off by crooks who thought they were slick but ended up making jaw-dropping blunders. In this narrative, we're exposing some of the most ridiculously stupid heist mistakes ever. Brace yourself for true stories of criminal masterminds who turned out to be masterminds of failure. From the robber who left his phone number behind to the burglars who fell asleep on the job, each story will have you shaking your head and laughing in disbelief. And make sure you stick around, because the final story involves a mistake so dumb it almost handed the win to the victims. Literally. Welcome to the most stupid heist mistakes ever, where crime doesn't pay, especially when you're bad at it. Our first tale of criminal incompetence plays out like a drive-through order gone wrong. In March 2010, 27-year-old Albert Bailey decided to streamline his bank heist by calling ahead. Yes, he actually phoned the bank in advance to order his cash. Posing as a would-be robber, Bailey informed the People's Bank in Fairfield, Connecticut, that he'd be stopping by in about 10 minutes, kindly requesting $100,000 in large bills be bagged up for pickup. He figured this would save everyone's time and avoid any messy theatrics. After all, why cause a scene waving a gun around when you can just pick up your loot like a pizza? Unsurprisingly, the bank staff didn't exactly prep his order. They hung up and called 911 immediately. When Bailey's 16-year-old accomplice strolled in shortly after to collect the takeout cash, police were already on site. The teen grabbed a small bag of money, about $900 that a teller had set aside, and ran to the getaway car where Bailey was waiting. But instead of a clean escape, they were greeted by officers swarming the parking lot. Both were arrested on the spot, delivering a swift end to perhaps the laziest robbery attempt in history. It's safe to say this call-ahead heist strategy was a spectacular flop. They basically RSVP'd for their own arrest. As one commentator joked, they thought of getting delivery for their loot, but that would have meant leaving a tip. If you thought calling ahead was brazen, our next crook went one step further. He left his phone number at the scene of the crime. In 2008, 18-year-old Ruben Zarate attempted to rob Velasquez Mufflers, an auto shop in Chicago. He burst in with a mask and a gun demanding cash, only to discover most of the money was locked in a time delay safe that only the manager could open. The manager wasn't due in for a few hours, so the employees told Zarate the inconvenient truth. Rather than cut his losses, Zarate improvised a genius solution. He provided the shop with 2 phone numbers and calmly asked them to call him back when the manager arrived to unlock the safe. Yes, he literally said, "Call me when you're ready to be robbed." Satisfied with this plan, Zarate left, expecting a callback. The astonished staff immediately contacted police, who couldn't believe a robber had been dumb enough to leave a callback number. Officers set up an ambush, and a couple of hours later they rang up Mr. Zarate to let him know the manager was in. True to his word, Zarate returned to the shop, where a team of Chicago police officers were lying in wait. A brief gunfight ensued when he realized the trap, but thankfully, no one was hurt. The police promptly arrested him after his ill-conceived intermission. The story spread nationwide, cementing Zarate's legacy as the robber who scheduled his own arrest. As one report deadpanned, they did call him back when the police got there. Inside a Metro Bank branch in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, a man named Daniel Rahines was plotting a heist. But first, he thought it wise to open a bank account. Yes, you read that correctly. In July 2010, the 35-year-old Rahines walked into the bank and politely sat down with a new accounts representative. He handed over 2 forms of ID, including his driver's license, and began filling out a customer information form as if he were a legitimate client. For a few minutes, he seriously discussed savings account options with the teller, likely hoping to appear as harmless as possible while the bank unwittingly gathered his personal details. Partway through the paperwork, Rahines abruptly announced that he made a mistake. He wasn't there for an account at all. He was there to rob the place. In a flash, he pulled out a gun and demanded cash. The bewildered teller complied, handing over a small amount of money, and Raheen's fled with his haul. Any smugness he felt quickly evaporated. As soon as he sped off, bank employees alerted police with all the information from his completed application form and IDs. To make matters worse, Raheen's getaway was literally a wreck. He crashed into another car moments after fleeing. Police caught up and arrested him not far from the scene. In the end, this would-be robber basically gave the bank his name and address before committing the crime. It's hard to imagine what he was thinking. Perhaps he hoped the bank wouldn't notice the switcheroo. Instead, he left behind one of the easiest trails for detectives in bank robbery history. As commentators later quipped, maybe next time he should just apply for a loan instead. Some criminals manage to escape with the loot, only to implicate themselves in the dumbest possible way afterward. Case in point, a small bank in Houston, Texas was hit by an inside job robbery in March 2011. Two men in masks, working with a pair of bank tellers, staged a holdup and made off with about $62,000 in cash. At first, it looked like they might have pulled it off, but only 2 days later, subtlety went out the window. One of the tellers, a young woman who had posed as a victim, brazenly posted on her Facebook page in all caps, "I'm rich, BTCH." Meanwhile, her boyfriend, another member of the crew, updated his status to "wipe my teeth with hundreds," misspelling hundreds apparently. It was the kind of flaunting you'd expect from someone who won the lottery, not an employee who just happened to come into money overnight. These ill-timed, expletive-laden boasts immediately raised red flags. Investigators were already suspicious and monitoring the crew, and the Facebook posts effectively blew their cover. It didn't take long for police to piece together that the robbery had been an inside job by a ragtag group of amateurs. The authorities swiftly arrested the two tellers, the young woman and another female accomplice, along with the boyfriend and one of their brothers who had also been in on the plan. In their social media giddiness, the thieves might as well have tagged themselves at the crime scene. One member of the crew even tried to justify the crime on Facebook, writing, "You have to pass the line sometimes to get this money." That philosophical gem, complete with spelling errors, was little comfort when the cuffs went on. The lesson? If you're fortunate enough to get away from a heist, don't boast about it on Facebook, unless you want a digital paper trail leading straight to a prison cell. Disguises are a hallmark of heists. Ski masks, fake beards, and clever costumes can help hide one's identity. But two would-be burglars in Carroll, Iowa took a decidedly low-budget approach to their disguise, and it turned into a fiasco that made national headlines. The duo, 23-year-old Matthew McNally and 20-year-old Joey Miller, decided that instead of masks, they'd just draw on their faces. Armed with a permanent black marker and perhaps a few beers in their system, these geniuses scribbled thick marker ink all over their faces as a mask, then set out to break into an apartment one night in October 2009. They likely believed the marker would obscure their features in the dark. In reality, it made them look like cartoonish characters, and certainly not invisible. A witness who saw two men with painted faces attempt the break-in immediately called the police. When officers pulled over McNally and Miller's car a few blocks away, they were greeted with an unforgettable sight. Instead of two masked bandits, they found two young men with faces covered in scribbled black ink. The police chief himself admitted the bizarre DIY disguise made things a little easier for the cops, since the pair were quite easy to spot once described. Mugshots taken after their arrest show both men looking thoroughly embarrassed, permanent markers still streaked all over their faces for the world to see. The story quickly went viral as a textbook example of criminal stupidity. It turns out the motive was as dumb as the disguise. One of the men suspected the apartment's occupant of dating his ex-girlfriend, so they were seeking some vigilante justice while intoxicated. In the end, McNally and Miller were charged with attempted burglary and became minor celebrities known as the Marker Bandits. Their failed face paint caper will live on in infamy as one of the worst disguise ideas ever. Most thieves try to blend in after a heist, ditching their disguises and hiding in the crowd. But Dennis Hawkins of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, apparently didn't get that memo. In July 2010, the 48-year-old Hawkins attempted to rob a bank while dressed in perhaps the most attention-grabbing outfit imaginable. For reasons unknown, he decided to disguise himself as a woman of sorts. He donned a blonde wig and even stuffed his shirt with fake breasts under a sweater. But the pièce de résistance of his ensemble was a pair of bright, multicolored clown pants. To top it off, Hawkins neglected one crucial detail. He didn't bother to cover up his own face or his very real goatee. Witnesses and later the police chief would note that his brown facial hair was clearly visible the whole time, making his female getup absolutely useless.
Hawkins' absurd appearance aside, the robbery itself initially succeeded, sort of. He entered a Swiss Vale bank just outside Pittsburgh with a BB gun he had shoplifted from a Kmart earlier that morning. He threatened the tellers and managed to snatch an unspecified amount of cash, stuffing it into a bag. But as he fled, things fell apart fast. He ducked behind a nearby tree to check his stolen money, and that's when a hidden dye pack exploded, splattering red dye all over him. Now, Mr. Clown Pants was not only conspicuous by outfit, but literally red-handed and red-faced. Panicking, Hawkins tried to make a getaway. He stumbled to a gas station and attempted to carjack a vehicle, but by this point he was drawing attention from everyone around. Police, responding to the robbery, found him sitting in a stolen car at the gas station, red dye staining his clothes and skin, wig askew, looking like the punchline of a heist gone wrong. Unsurprisingly, Hawkins was promptly arrested. Even the police had to marvel at this criminal's decisions. "He would get my nomination for dumbest criminal," admitted Swiss Vale Police Chief Greg Geppert, noting the ridiculous mismatch of the blonde wig with Hawkins' still visible goatee. The chief added that once the description of the clown pants and wig went out, it didn't take long for someone to spot the culprit. After all, how many people in Pittsburgh were running around in broad daylight dressed like a clown and covered in red dye? Hawkins' attempted bank robbery became the stuff of local legend and news headlines, proving that an outrageous disguise can make you memorable for all the wrong reasons. In the end, he learned the hard way that if you try to play dress-up criminal, you better not literally look like a clown. Elaborate heist films always show the robbers timing everything perfectly, but reality is often far less graceful. In 2010, a trio of thieves in South Beach, Florida, attempted a pre-dawn bank break-in that went from bad to worse in record time. Two men had the plan to burglarize a Wachovia bank around 5:45 a.m. on a Sunday, figuring the bank would be empty and the dark would cover their tracks. They weren't interested in confronting tellers or customers. Instead, they smashed through a window while the branch was closed, aiming for a silent burglary. However, poor planning plagued them from the start. They hadn't realized or bothered to research that at that hour, all the money would be secured in the vault. With the vault locked tight, the would-be robbers scrambled for a plan B. Desperate for something of value, they started emptying out trays of loose change on the counters. They grabbed handfuls of quarters, dimes, and nickels, pointedly ignoring pennies, as one later quipped, and filled sacks with as many coins as they could haul. Now lugging bags of heavy coinage instead of lightweight bills, the two burglars huffed and puffed their way to the exit. The weight of their loot literally slowed them down, and it wasn't long before police, alerted by the alarm, arrived on the scene. But the final nail in the coffin for this caper was waiting in the parking lot. Their getaway driver, the third accomplice, was supposed to be ready and alert in the car for a quick escape. Instead, he had passed out drunk behind the wheel while his buddies were inside fumbling with coins. Incredibly, all the commotion, sirens blaring, likely frantic shouts, wasn't enough to wake the sleeping driver. When the two hapless thieves reached the car, they found their getaway man snoring and police cruisers closing in. It was game over. Authorities arrested the exhausted coin thieves on the spot, presumably after rousing their dozing driver from his ill-timed nap. This disastrous heist had it all:
Zero loot of any value, a comically sluggish escape, and a getaway driver who slept through the getaway. The South Beach trio clearly lacked not only a proper plan but also common sense and sobriety. In the end, their heist was foiled by a combination of literal heavy metal, those coin bags, and a very unreliable wheelman. It's the kind of mistake that would never make the cut in an action movie script. Too unbelievable. Yet it happened in real life, cementing these burglars' place among the dumbest criminal fails on record. When a bank robber passes a note to the teller with their demands, clarity is key. You'd think that would be obvious, but a 67-year-old British would-be robber named Alan Slattery managed to bungle even this basic step. In March 2021, Slattery walked into a Nationwide Building Society bank branch in Eastbourne, England, and slid the teller a handwritten note stating his intentions. There was just one big problem. His handwriting was utterly illegible. The staff literally could not decipher what the note was asking for. According to reports, the scrawled message was so sloppy and riddled with indecipherable words that the teller was left baffled. In a moment of confusion, with Slattery standing there expectantly, the bank employees essentially had to shrug. They genuinely couldn't read what he wanted. Frustrated and empty-handed, Slattery ended up fleeing the bank with nothing, since his threatening note failed to communicate an actual threat. One might say the robbery was over before it even began, foiled by a lack of penmanship.
Incredibly, Slattery didn't call it quits after that failure. He tried his luck at another bank branch in a neighboring town days later. This time, whether by improving his handwriting or sheer luck, he managed to get a small amount of cash, around £2,400 from a different teller. Emboldened, he attempted a third bank robbery soon after, but by then authorities were on his trail. Sussex police had security footage, and likely the embarrassing, illegible note as evidence, and caught up with Slattery shortly after the third attempt. He pleaded guilty to multiple robbery charges and was sentenced to 6 years in prison. In a statement, police noted the fear he caused bank staff. Even if his first note failed to convey his demands, the situation was still frightening for employees. Ironically, Slattery's botched first heist became international news, with people around the world chuckling at the robber who might have succeeded if only he had better cursive skills. It's a stark reminder that in the pantheon of heist mistakes, sometimes even basic literacy, or lack thereof, can be the difference between a payout and an outright fail. For his part, Slattery earned a reputation as the robber whose bad handwriting sent him home empty-handed, a mistake literally written into the record books. It's time for our final story, and we may have saved the most absurd blunder for last. Picture this. A bank robber storms in with a gun and a big demand, but ends up accidentally giving his gun away to the very people he's trying to rob. It sounds impossible, but it actually happened in London in October 2011. The scene was a branch of Halifax Bank. A nervous man entered and dramatically demanded £700,000 in cash from the staff. A tall order by any measure. As he barked out instructions, he reached into his bag to hand over what he thought was a sack for the teller to fill with money. But in a heart-stopping moment of pure stupidity, the robber realized too late that he hadn't pulled out the bag at all. Instead, he had handed the cashier his loaded handgun. For a second, both the thief and the bank employee likely stared in disbelief at the firearm now sitting on the counter, pointed away from its owner. The cashier, thinking on his feet, immediately grabbed the gun. Suddenly, tables turned completely. The unarmed robber was now looking down the barrel of his own weapon, firmly in the grasp of the very person he was trying to threaten. In a panic, the clumsy criminal did the only sensible thing. He ran for his life. In his desperation to escape, he reportedly lunged out of the bank, snatched a bicycle from a bystander, it happened to belong to a bank employee, and pedaled away as fast as he could. One imagines he was red-faced with shame under his mask. Police were called, and given the wealth of forensic evidence and CCTV footage, it was only a matter of time before this bungling robber was identified and caught. News of the incident left the public and police gobsmacked.
Scotland Yard officers couldn't resist a bit of humor in their report, noting that the thief foiled his own plan with a bit of a misfire. Pun absolutely intended. The story quickly spread globally as an epitome of heist ineptitude, a robber literally disarming himself during the robbery. Needless to say, handing your gun to the cashier is one of those mistakes you only make once. This unnamed crook earned a spot in the Hall of Fame of stupid criminals, and his tale serves as a fitting capstone to our collection of outrageous heist blunders. From the bank employee who ratted herself out on Facebook to the thief who dialed in his own arrest, these stories prove that when it comes to crime, stupidity can be just as decisive as cunning. Each of these criminals thought they had a clever angle, whether it was avoiding lines by calling ahead, concealing their identity with a Sharpie, or hiding in plain sight in clown pants. But their lack of common sense led to instant karma and handcuffs. In the world of heists and robberies, the line between a Hollywood-style mastermind and a punchline is very thin indeed. These real-life tales of heists gone horribly wrong are more than just dark humor. They're cautionary tales. They remind us, and hopefully any aspiring crooks out there, that crime doesn't pay, especially when you commit it in the dumbest way possible. So the next time you watch an elaborate movie heist and marvel at the ingenuity, remember these hapless felons. In reality, the most memorable heists are often the ones that fail spectacularly, thanks to the most stupid mistakes ever. Stay safe, stay smart, and if you ever find yourself thinking up a criminal scheme, do yourself a favor and think twice. You don't want to end up as the next legend in the gallery of dumbest criminals.
So, what do you think? Which of these heist fails had you shaking your head the most? Was it the guy who called ahead like it was takeout? The drunk getaway driver who slept through the escape? Or the robber who literally handed his gun to the bank teller? Let's be honest. If stupidity was a crime, these guys would be doing life. But now, we want to hear from you. Which story was your favorite? Do you want more outrageous true crime breakdowns like this? Or are you into unsolved heists, criminal psychology, or maybe even celebrity crime gone wrong? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Or tell us the kind of crime stories you want us to cover next. We read every single one. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell, because we post crime content like this every week. Stories that'll make you laugh, gasp, and sometimes wonder how these people ever thought they'd get away with it. Until next time, stay smart, stay curious, and don't be the next feature on the most stupid heist mistakes ever. Subscribe now, comment below, and we'll see you in the next one.